Warm welcome all attendees to this webinar on role of CT in COVID-19 pneumonia, a panorama of the pandemic. I, on behalf of GE, would like to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Dr. Saurav Deshpande. He is MD Radio Diagnosis from TNMC and BYL Nair Hospital, Mumbai. He is presently consultant radiologist at Ajit Scanning and Diagnostic Center in Kalyan. His special interest is in MSK, cardiothoracic, and neuroimaging. He is ex-assistant professor at Sion and JJ Hospital. He has visiting fellowship in MSK at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, Boston, USA. He has presented at international conferences like RSNA. He also has multiple publications in national and international indexed journals. We look forward to an interactive session with him today. Before I call on our speaker, few important notes. Kindly post your questions in the chat box. Questions will be addressed at the end of the session. Log out and re-log in if you face any technical glitch. Thank you. Dr. Saurav, it is a pleasure to have you on this important webinar today. Over to you.
Hi. Okay. Thank you, Priya, for the introduction. Good evening, friends. I'm Dr. Saurav Deshpande, consultant radiologist at Ajit Scanning Center, Kalyan. So let's start with today's topic of ours, which is role of CT in COVID-19 pneumonia. Since the entire world is facing with this health crisis situation, I would like to discuss the panorama of the imaging findings of COVID-19 on CT, which plays a very important role in the management of these patients. COVID-19, that is coronavirus disease 2019, is an infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, a strain of the coronavirus. The first cases were seen in Wuhan, China in December 2019, before spreading globally with more than 20 million cases now confirmed. The current outbreak was officially recognized as a pandemic by the WHO on 11th March 2020. Aerosol and fomite transmission are the main ways of transmission. The definitive test is the RT-PCR test. It is believed to be highly specific, but less sensitive, with the sensitivity varying from 60 to 95% and the pool sensitivity being 89%. However, sensitivity depends on the time since exposure. The presenting features are fever, cough, anosmia, ageusia, which is loss of taste, sore throat, breathlessness, headache, and generalized myalgia. And the uncommon presentations are related to abdominal, cardiovascular, ocular, and skin manifestations. Now, today's lecture of ours will be based upon these 10 important questions. Rather than taking a routine didactic lecture, I have based my discussion on the basis of these 10 important questions, which will solve the doubts of the radiologists as well as clinicians. The questions are: what are the radiological features of COVID-19 on CT? What is the CT protocol used? What is the standardized reporting system used? What are the important differentials? Does the extent of imaging changes correlate to the clinical course? And can it prognosticate and guide treatment? What are the other imaging modalities which can diagnose COVID-19 pneumonia? When would you do an X-ray and when a CT? Can CT be used as a screening tool for COVID-19? When exactly to perform a CT in a suspected case, and what are the precautions to be taken? So now we will start with our first question, which is: what are the radiological features of COVID-19 on CT? The early radiological features are ground glass opacities, which are often rounded and patchy in morphology, associated with vascular dilatation with or without consolidation. Typically, there are no nodules, effusion, or mediastinal lymphadenopathy. And in the later stages, there are confluent ground glass opacities with superimposed consolidation. Associated findings such as linear opacities, architectural distortion, and bronchiolar dilatation are also seen. Now, the first and the most important finding is ground glass opacity. It is seen due to partial opacification of the alveoli, and it does not obscure the vascular markings. The classical pattern is bilateral peripheral and basal distribution of patchy ground glass opacities, which are often rounded in morphology. As the disease progresses, these ground glass opacities coalesce to form confluent GGOs, as seen in this advanced case. Another important pattern is the crazy paving pattern, which is seen when ground glass opacities are superimposed with septal thickening, as you can see in these zoomed images. This is another analogous image of the crazy pavement pattern. Next important finding is consolidation, which is seen in 40% of the patients. It occurs due to complete opacification of the alveoli and it obscures the vascular markings. As you can see, there are confluent areas of consolidation in the peripheral subpleural aspect of both the lung fields. Another important finding is the reverse halo sign, in which you can see a central ground glass opacity surrounded by a ring of consolidation. Now, a combination of all the above findings can also be seen in a single patient of COVID-19 pneumonia. The peripheral distribution may be due to the fact that distribution of blood vessels and lymphatics rich in immune cells is more abundant in the peripheral and lower areas. But how does COVID-19 cause lung damage and the corresponding imaging findings on CT? We will quickly have a look at the pathophysiology of the imaging changes. Firstly, aerosolization of the viral particles takes place when an infected person coughs. These are inhaled and they settle down into the lower airways. The virus attaches via the ACE2 receptors and replicates, which leads to pneumocyte destruction. Initiation of repair is started with cytokine release and immune cell activation, which leads to ingress of fluid and cellular debris. And finally, it leads to an organizing pneumonia. Most of the patients heal, however, some progress to diffuse alveolar damage. The next important set of findings is vascular thickening of or pulmonary angiopathy, which is seen in 70 to 80% of the patients. Now, this is characteristic of COVID-19 pneumonia and differentiates it from other conditions. In mild cases, prominent intralesional or proximal vessels are seen, whereas in severe cases, even the subpleural vessels become dilated. Few cases of pulmonary thromboembolism are also seen, which can be a fatal complication. As you can see in the zoomed images, there are dilated intralesional vessels which are reaching up to the level of the pleura. You can compare it with the normal contralateral lung parenchyma. Now, the exact cause of pulmonary angiopathy is not known, but it can be due to vascular inflammation, endothelial damage, microthrombosis, or dysfunctional vasoregulation. Now, even few vascular signs have been described for COVID-19 pneumonia. We all love to have signs in medicine, don't we? So these vascular signs are, first is the feather sign, in which the thickened vascular bundle with surrounding septal thickening and GGOs looks like that of a feather. Next important finding is dandelion sign, in which the classical rounded ground glass opacity with septal and vascular thickening looks like that of a flower of a dandelion plant. These diagnostic signs improve the accuracy for diagnosis of COVID-19 on CT. Next is pulmonary thromboembolism. It is seen in severe COVID-19 lung disease in patients who have high CT lesion score, D-dimer, LDH, and CRP levels. Development of thromboembolism could possibly be a pulmonary arterial thrombosis due to severe lung inflammation and a hypercoagulable state rather than the common thromboembolism. It is observed in COVID-19 patients mainly involving the segmental and subsegmental arteries and in patients mainly affected by a consolidation pattern. Now, this was a patient of severe COVID-19 lung disease who was complaining of breathlessness even on O2 with increased D-dimer levels and inflammatory markers. So a CT pulmonary angiogram was done and it showed non-enhancing filling defects in the left descending pulmonary artery. So a diagnosis of thromboembolism was made and the proper treatment was instituted. Now, as the disease progresses, the patients can either develop an organizing pneumonia pattern in which you can see patchy areas of consolidation with mild architectural distortion, or the patient can progress to a full-blown ARDS pattern in which diffuse areas of ground glass opacities and consolidations are seen scattered in all the lobes of the lung. Next finding is linear opacities. It is usually seen in resolving cases of COVID-19 pneumonia, and it is caused either by subsegmental atelectasis, fibrosis, resolving consolidation, or a combination of all of these. Bronchial dilatation is also seen in resolving cases of COVID-19 pneumonia when there is fibrosis and fractional bronchiectasis. Pleural effusion is a rare finding and seen in a very few percentage of the cases. Another rare finding is spontaneous pneumomediastinum. Now, this was the case with severe COVID-related lung disease, as you can see in these images. However, on the 10th day of the disease, the patient started complaining of severe nausea, vomiting, crepitus in the lower neck and the upper thoracic region. So a CT was done, which revealed pneumomediastinum. Now, the exact cause is increased alveolar pressure and diffuse alveolar injury in severe COVID-19 pneumonia, which may make the alveoli more prone to rupturing, especially as these patients often have cough. The association of pneumomediastinum and an extensive lesion on CT indicates severe destruction of the alveolar membrane, and it is the potential indicator of worsening cardiorespiratory disease. So such patients are put on careful monitoring. This was another child who showed pneumomediastinum on CT associated with subcutaneous emphysema on the right side of the chest wall. And finally, we have pulmonary fibrosis, which is seen in healed cases of COVID-19 pneumonia. Most of the patients regress with mild residual ground glass or reticular opacities. However, some can progress to fibrosis, which is going to be the most important problem in the near future, even when the pandemic settles down. CT changes appear 5 to 6 weeks after discharge. Although the virus is eradicated, the cause of lung damage, that is the chronic inflammatory process, has not been removed and itself leads to progressive fibrotic ILD. However, at present, there is no single study to evaluate the long-term evolution of the lung changes, and hopefully we will have a study in the near future. So this was a patient who was discharged after treatment of the active infection, and then 3 to 4 weeks after discharge, he was complaining of severe breathlessness and dyspnea on exertion. So CT was done, which revealed diffuse areas of septal thickening, architectural distortion in both the lung fields. So the patient had developed post-COVID fibrosis. This was another case of pulmonary fibrosis post-COVID-19 pneumonia, in which you can see diffuse areas of lung fibrosis in both the lung fields. Also, once you have diagnosed a classical case of COVID-19, you should also have a look at other features on the CT. For example, this case had classical subpleural ground glass opacities and consolidation. However, on the mediastinal window, the patient had multiple enlarged conglomerated right hilar pre-paratracheal lymph nodes. So this turned out to be COVID-19 with coexistent tuberculosis, which is a very rare entity. Also, this patient was a known case of interstitial lung disease, and he presented to us with acute onset of fever, cough, breathlessness. So CT was done, which revealed subpleural reticular opacities with superimposed GGOs and consolidation. And RT-PCR was done for this patient, and it turned out to be COVID-19 with ILD. However, in some cases, differentiating resolving viral pneumonitis from a de novo case of ILD can be very tricky. And in such cases, the clinical suspicion should be heavily relied upon. This was another patient who was a proven case of COVID-19 pneumonia. However, he was presenting with severe breathlessness. CT showed classical subpleural GGOs and consolidation. However, there was superimposed pleural effusion with cardiomegaly and smooth interstitial septal thickening in the perihilar region. So the patient had developed pulmonary edema with COVID-19 pneumonia. One postulated hypothesis is COVID-19 can cause myocarditis and cardiac failure, leading to cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Even COVID-19 can cause many systemic extrapulmonary manifestations, which can be diagnosed on CT scan. First, we will have a look at the neurological manifestations. The most common are acute ischemic infarcts, which occurs due to the prothrombotic state which COVID causes. These are usually large territorial infarcts. Other finding is intracranial hemorrhages, neuritis. It most commonly causes olfactory neuritis, which explains why these patients have anosmia. Next finding is PRES, acute encephalopathy, venous sinus thrombosis, and even chronic white matter disease. The gastrointestinal manifestations are bowel wall thickening, pneumatosis, portal venous gas, even large solid organ infarcts, overdistended gallbladder with sludge, which occurs due to cholestasis and features of hepatitis. Cardiac manifestations are myocarditis and heart failure, and vascular findings are arterial and deep venous thrombosis. So we will now move on to our next question is, That is, what is the CT protocol to be used when a patient comes to your department for an HRCT of the chest? In uncomplicated COVID-19 pneumonia, a single-phase, non-contrast, low-dose CT chest with an inspiratory breath hold extending from the lung apex to the lung base is done without the need to cover the upper abdomen. For radiation protection purposes, as these patients may need follow-up CTs, a low-dose chest CT is acquired at less than or equal to 100 kV and low tube current, that is 10 to 30 MAS, giving nearly 1/8 of the routine radiation dose. Also, as most of these patients are breathless and have a lot of cough, protocols with faster scanning should be preferred in these patients with the use of faster gantry rotation time and higher pitch values. Section thickness of 0.5 mm is used, which can be varied according to the patient, and iterative reconstruction is used for radiation protection purposes. In complicated COVID-19 pneumonia, who have worsening cardiorespiratory status or suspected pulmonary embolism or necrotizing pneumonia for superimposed bacterial infection, we have to do a contrast study. And in such cases, direct post-contrast arterial phase CT can be performed without a need for non-contrast or native phase. Now, the findings which you have seen earlier can be very non-specific at times, and it is important to rule out the other differentials. The radiological picture of COVID is of three types. First is atypical or organizing pneumonia. Second is acute interstitial pneumonia. And third is the ARDS pattern. And it has broad differential diagnosis. The first are viral pneumonias, which can be caused by influenza, parainfluenza, RSV, etc. The atypical bacterial pneumonias, which can be caused by Mycoplasma, Legionella, etc. Now, even these cases can cause ground glass opacities. How the typical distribution and the pattern of the GGOs associated with other findings such as vascular dilatation help us in differentiating COVID from these cases. The next differential is drug and chemoradiotherapy induced changes. In this case, obviously, we'll have a history of chemo and radiotherapy Indian with a history of cancer. The other differentials are organizing pneumonia and vaginal granulomatosis. Now we will have a look at few of the differentials. This patient presented to us with cough, breathlessness, hemoptysis. CT showed confluent GGOs with a nodular pattern in both the lung fields. This patient was ANCA positive status, and thus a diagnosis of systemic vasculitis like vaginal granulomatosis was made. In this case, the ground glass opacities were due to pulmonary hemorrhage. Even in this case, we had multiple subpleural areas of consolidation and ground glass opacities diffusely in both the lung fields. However, the patient had a very chronic history of cough, malaise, weight loss, fever, and a diagnosis of cryptogenic organizing pneumonia was made. Another very important and basic point is that these dependent densities are very commonly seen in scans of patients who are especially elderly. They do not have adequate respiratory support. And this is due to basal atelectasis and not due to COVID. You should not label them as the subpleural GGOs in COVID. A prone scan will help, as these dependent densities due to atelectasis will disappear on prone scans. Also, lobar consolidation does not predominate in COVID-19 disease. As you can see in this image, this lobar consolidation, which was caused by a bacterial pneumonia. And COVID is never nodular. For example, this patient presented to us with cough. CT scan was suggestive of multiple randomly distributed nodular opacity with patchy areas of fibrosis in bilateral upper lobes. So this was diagnosed as silicosis with early CFF. And this was another case who presented with multiple centilobular tree-inbud nodular opacities. And this was diagnosed as classical sputum positive tuberculosis. So now you have done a scan for COVID-19, diagnosed all the major important findings, ruled out the differentials. But what is more important is you have to give a standardized report. So is there a standardized reporting system? The answer is yes. The Dutch Radiological Society had come up with CORADS, which is COVID-19 reporting and data system. As you have LIRADS for liver, BIRADS for breast, now we have CORADS for COVID-19 pneumonia. It is basically to ensure that the CT reporting is uniform and replicable and gives the level of suspicion of COVID on CT. There are 6 classes from CORADS 1 to 6, in which CORADS 1 suggests that it is unlikely to be COVID, CORADS 2 suggests that there is low suspicion, CORADS 3 suggests that it is indeterminate for COVID, CORADS 4 and 5 suggest that there is high and very high suspicion of COVID pneumonia, CORAD 6 is not important from the radiological point of view as it is already a PCR positive status, but a scan here is done to look for involvement, the amount of involvement. So we will have a look at few of the examples. This case, CORAD was CORAD 1. It can be either a normal or a non-infectious disease such as sarcoid, HP, etc. In CORAD 2, the findings are consistent with other infections. As you can see, there are multiple large cavitatory areas of consolidation with multiple centrilobular nodular opacities, which is seen in tuberculosis. CORAD 3, the CT abnormalities indicate infection, but we are unsure whether COVID-19 is involved or not. For example, this case of unifocal GGO, we really cannot tell whether it is caused by COVID pneumonia or a bacterial pneumonia, so we label it as CORAD 3. In CORAD 4, the findings indicate a high level of suspicion, but they are not extremely typical. As seen in this case, there are unilateral ground glass opacities only in the left lobe. Other examples are multifocal consolidations without any other typical finding and finding suspicions of COVID-19 in underlying pulmonary disease such as emphysema or ILD. The earlier case which we had seen of COVID-19 with ILD was diagnosed as CORAD 4. This is a classical case of COVID-19 pneumonia and it is labeled as CORAD 5 where the CT findings are typical of COVID-19. Bilateral multifocal peripheral GGOs and consolidations are seen with other typical findings. This is another case of CORAD 5. And CORAD 6 is patient with positive PCR status and bilateral GGOs. Now, CORADs has been extensively used in India. I have seen each and every report with CORADs. However, the RSNA also came up with this expert consensus statement on reporting in which they have given 4 categories. These are typical, indeterminate, atypical, and negative, which is easier for the consultants to understand because they do not have to look up to the CORADs classification again and again to see what the CORADs exactly indicate. So the typical category in this corresponds to CORADs 4 and 5. The indeterminate category corresponds to CORADs 3. The atypical category corresponds to 2 and negative to CORADs 1. So these are a few examples. As you can see, this is negative for COVID-19 pneumonia. This is atypical. This is indeterminate for COVID-19 pneumonia. And 4th and 5th images are typical for COVID-19 pneumonia according to RSNA consensus statement. So finally, you have framed a report, but what is important from the clinician's point of view is does the CT findings correlate to the clinical course and can CT be used to prognosticate and guide treatment? The answer is yes, because more the lung involved, worse is the outcome, and it does correlate with the oxygen requirement, and thus it helps in better triage of the patient. For prognostication purposes, we have developed the CT involvement score. It can be done by 3 ways. The first is the qualitative or visual assessment, in which the severity on CT can be assessed by the visual assessment. And this is obviously the easiest way to score the severity. For example, you can give in your report that the CT images show approximately 25 or 40% involvement. Next is the semi-quantitative CT severity score, in which we score the percentage of each of the 5 lobes that are involved. We give a score of 0 to 5 depending upon the percentage of involvement of each lobe. And then the total CT score is the sum of the individual lobar scores. It can range from either 0 to maximum 25, and all the lobes show more than 75% involvement. And then the CT severity is graded into mild when the score is less than 8, moderate when the score is from 9 to 15, and severe when the score is more than 50. A study by Francon M. et al. Showed that a sum of more than 17 predicted a worse outcome. Now we will look at an example to see how exactly to use the CT severity score. As you can see in this case, the right lower lobe showed moderate involvement of approximately 25 to 50%, so a score of 3 was given. The bilateral upper lobes and the left lower lobe showed mild involvement, approximately between 5 to 25%, so a score of 2 was given. And right middle lobe showed minimal involvement, so a score of 1 was given. The total score came out to be 10, and thus it was suggestive of moderate involvement of lung with COVID-19 in this patient. The last method is the quantitative method, and it is done by using a 3D automated software. As you can see, after using the software, the involved areas are color-coded yellow, and the normal where aerated lung is color-coded green. The software gives us that nearly 46% of the lung is involved by COVID-19 pneumonia in this patient. A study by Colombi et al. Showed that patients who have well-aerated lung parenchyma less than 73% had a 5 times greater likelihood of ICU admission or even death. So this was a case of severe COVID pneumonia. In this case, the amount of lung involvement was just 19% according to the quantitative method, and thus this was a case of mild COVID-19 disease. Also, you can get the exact stage of COVID-19 pneumonia on CT. 4 stages have been described, and these are early or the initial stage between 0 to 4 days, when the CT can be absolutely normal or can have only few GGOs. This is very important. Up to half of the patients can have normal CT scan within the 2 days of symptom onset. In the progressive stage between 5 to 8 days, there are increased GGOs and crazy paving appearance. Then in the next peak stage between 9 to 13 days, there are consolidation. And in the absorption stage, that is after 2 weeks, fibrous types appear and the abnormalities resolve at 1 month and beyond. We will look at few of the examples. In the earlier phase, as you can see, there are only few patchy ground glass opacities. In the progressive stage, there are confluent areas of GGOs with crazy paving pattern. In the peak stage, you have confluent areas of consolidation. And finally, in the absorption stage, after 2 weeks, there are fibrous opacities. Thus, by giving the exact stage of the pneumonia on CT, we can help the clinicians to institute the appropriate treatment. Also, it has been suggested that a CT done between the 7th to 10th day gives an idea about the maximum amount of involvement of the lung parenchyma by COVID and thus can predict the outcome of these patients. For example, a low CT severity score on day 10 of illness suggests a good outcome and the patients may not progress to severe category or ARDS, while a high CT severity score between the 7 to 10 days needs close monitoring and often ICU care. Further, CT obviously depends on the clinical evolution and the requirement of oxygen of the patient. So finally, we have made this reporting checklist for patients who present to us. Firstly, we write the symptoms and the duration. Then we describe the major findings, which is GGOs, consolidation, septal thickening, and their distribution, whether they are unilateral, bilateral, rounded, confluent, and also the lobar predominance. Then we describe the additional findings such as vascular thickening, fibrotic bands, pleural effusion, bronchiectasis, etc. And then we assimilate all these findings and give a proper CORADS. Then we give a stage, whether it is progressive, resolving at the peak stage, and finally the CT severity score, depending upon the percentage of involvement of each lobe. So after having an extensive discussion of the use of CT on COVID-19, we will also have a look at other imaging modalities which can be used for COVID-19 pneumonia. These are chest radiographs, ultrasound, and nuclear medicine. Nuclear medicine is generally not used for COVID-19, but it can diagnose COVID-19 in other cases done for other purposes. The classical chest X-ray findings are bilateral peripheral airspace opacities, predominantly in lower zones. And these are most extensive at about 10 to 12 days after the symptom onset. As you can see, this was a case of mild COVID-19 disease, while this patient showed moderate involvement with COVID-19. In severe cases, you can see an ARDS pattern in which you can see confluent areas of airspace opacities diffusely scattered in all the lobes. These patients who are usually admitted in the ICU require follow-up chest radiographs every 2 to 3 days to look for resolution or progression. A chest radiography severity score has also been developed by Wong et al., where a score of 0 to 4 is assigned to each lung depending upon the extent of involvement by consolidation or ground glass opacities. And then the scores for each lung are summed to produce the final severity score out of 8. However, an important point is that when there is a mild case of COVID-19 pneumonia, CT can show subtle ground glass opacities and the X-ray can be completely normal. So sensitivity and specificity of X-ray is definitely lower than that of CT. Ultrasound can be used in critically ill patients in ICU with the absence of radiation, low cost and contamination, and repeatability for examining the basal peripheral portion of the lungs. However, it is less sensitive and specific, cannot detect intrapulmonary deep lesions, and assess the entire extent of the disease. For scanning planning purposes, 8 zones have been described: 4 anterior, 4 lateral, and posterior, 2 posterior. Although COVID affects the posterior zones predominantly, it may be difficult in critically ill patients to turn them into prone or lateral positions. So this is another disadvantage of ultrasound. So the findings on ultrasound are: first is B lines. Basically, it is a comet tail artifact arising from a thickened pleural line. As you can see, there are vertical echogenic reverberation artifacts, and these are called B lines. These lead to disappearance of the normal homogeneous horizontal A lines, which are seen in a well-aerated lung. A single or 2 B lines can be seen even in normal cases, but more than 3 B lines per zone is considered to be positive, and the extent of lung involvement is related to the number of positive zones. However, this finding is non-specific, and it can be seen in a variety of viral pneumonias, pulmonary edema, or even contusions. Next finding is thickened irregular discontinuous pleura. As you can see, there is moderate pleural thickening in this case and mild pleural thickening in this case of COVID-19. Next finding is consolidation, which can be either subpleural consolidation in mild disease. You can see hypoechoic area with this irregular discontinuous pleura in this patient. While in severe cases, the patient can develop lobar areas of consolidations with air bronchogram within. So just knowing about a modality is not important. What is even more important is to know when exactly to use a particular imaging modality. So chest radiography has a sensitivity of 50 to 69% and a specificity of 30 to 40%, which is definitely lower than that of CT. So portable chest X-rays are done only for non-transportable or difficult to transport patients in ICU and for the regular follow-up, while CT is done for all others, especially at initial assessment. So with the broad use of CT, can CT be used as a screening tool for large-scale purposes? The answer is no. CT, although has a very high sensitivity of 80 to 90% and specificity of 60 to 70%, the use of CT as a primary large-scale screening tool is discouraged. Why? Because there is lack of sensitivity in early disease, there is additional ionizing radiation exposure, there is depletion of finite resources due to excessive usage, there is increased risk of transmission to other patients, and obviously logistical issues. And also with the ongoing debate that the initial data has said CT is more sensitive than RT-PCR, that is nearly 98% versus the 71% of RT-PCR. There are many factors which affect the sensitivity of CT, including the prevalence, and the final diagnosis still requires a positive RT-PCR test, which is considered the standard of reference. So to answer the ongoing debate, WHO came up with these latest guidelines last month on how and when to perform a CT in a suspected or diagnosed case. This is the article which I'm talking about. There are 6 guidelines and we will have a look at each of them. In the first guideline, they have told that for asymptomatic contacts of COVID-19 patients, WHO suggests not using chest imaging for the diagnosis of COVID-19, and RT-PCR should be done for confirming. The first part of the second guideline states that for symptomatic patients with suspected COVID-19, WHO suggests not using chest imaging when RT-PCR is available, but with timely results. And the second part of the first guideline states that for symptomatic patients with suspected COVID, WHO suggests using chest imaging when RT-PCR is either not available, the results are delayed, and this is very important, when the initial RT-PCR is negative, but there is high clinical suspicion of COVID. Then the third guideline states that for patients with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 not currently hospitalized and with mild symptoms, WHO suggests using chest imaging in addition to clinical and lab assessment to decide on hospital administration versus home discharge. The next 2 guidelines are for patients with moderate to severe symptoms. That is, for patients with suspected or confirmed COVID not currently hospitalized and with moderate to severe symptoms, WHO suggests using chest imaging to decide on ward admission versus ICU admission. And the 5th guideline states that for patients for moderate to severe symptoms, chest imaging should be done to inform the therapeutic management. And lastly, the 6th guideline states that for hospitalized patients with COVID-19 whose symptoms are resolved, WHO suggests not using chest imaging in addition, obviously, to clinical and lab assessment to informing decision regarding discharge. Thus, summarizing all the 6 guidelines, they WHO guidelines have suggested using chest imaging in most of the situations except diagnosis in asymptomatic contacts and symptomatic patients when RT-PCR is available but with timely results, and also in those diagnosed patients who have improved with resolution of symptoms for discharge. But even after the guidelines, the threshold for imaging of patients with potential or confirmed COVID demonstrates a degree of variation globally due to local resources, the published guidelines, and the socio-cultural approaches to imaging. And CT scans are still done even for asymptomatic contact, despite the free availability of RT-PCR, as it is faster and results are instantly available, that is in a span of 2 minutes. And although the physicians are aware that a negative CT does not rule out COVID, when radiological findings are confident of diagnosis, then they have the diagnosis instantly. So we have seen that CT can be used in most of the patients, but then due precautions must be taken to prevent cross-infection. Why? Because the healthcare workers and CT scanners could become vectors of infection to other patients who require imaging. These precautions can be taken at the level of the patients, healthcare workers, and involving the equipment. At the level of the patient should be screened at the point of the entry. We should triage suspected patients and finish the imaging as soon as possible. Staggered appointments should be given to avoid overcrowding so that social distancing is maintained. And we should try to give specific timings to suspected or confirmed cases for doing their HRCT. For healthcare workers, telereporting options should be preferred, or there should be segregation of the workforce. We should disinfect workstations before use. We should strictly use N95 masks and PPE kits. Hand hygiene should be implemented, and we should disinfect clothes, mobiles, spectacles after coming home and taking a bath. At the level of the equipment, thorough interval deep cleaning with disinfectants of the CT machine, at least the gantry, and the corridors should be done with quaternary ammonium and alcohol-based disinfectants. A minimum downtime of 45 minutes to 1 hour is advisable after we do a CT of a positive patient. And minimum of 6 air exchanges per hour are advisable to provide good ventilation. Whenever feasible, especially in big hospital setup, a dedicated scanner should be kept for COVID patients. So now we have answered all the 10 questions which I have shown you on the first slide, and these are the answers. Bilateral multifocal ground glass opacities with consolidations in peripheral and basal distribution are characteristic of COVID-19 pneumonia along with vascular thickening. Low-dose non-contrast CT scan using fast scanning techniques is the protocol used with single arterial phase CT in suspected pulmonary embolism. Other viral and atypical bacterial pneumonia should be kept in the list of differentials, especially in places with low prevalence. CORADS and RSNA consensus statement are used to give a standardized reporting system. CT can prognosticate cases by giving CT severity score and also help in treatment by giving the exact stage of the pneumonia. Chest X-ray and ultrasound can diagnose COVID-19 but have a lower sensitivity and specificity than CT. Portable chest X-ray is done mostly for non-transportable or difficult to transport patients, while CT is preferred for all other cases. CT as a tool for large-scale screening is discouraged, and although with the ongoing debate that CT has a higher sensitivity than RT-PCR according to a few studies, PCR still remains a standard of reference. The latest WHO guidelines has put CT chest at the center stage for diagnosis, except in asymptomatic contacts or when RT-PCR is available with timely results in mild cases. And finally, due precautions must be taken while performing CT to prevent cross-infection. Thus, I would like to end my discussion by telling that although the situation looks grim at the present, we as a united healthcare community will do everything which is possible to fight the virus. Thank you for the audience for patient listening, and thank you GE Healthcare and Parikar sir of Ajit Scanning to give me this opportunity to speak on such an important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saurav, for such an informative session. As we come towards the end of a wonderful session where you discussed about complicated and uncomplicated pneumonia, it's time to have few questions from our attendees as well.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Attendees, I request you to post more of questions if you have. There are few questions that are already queued. So the first question, doctor, is
Okay, you can start with the questions. Yeah.
from one of our participants is, what role does CT play when complications like bacterial pneumonia, myocardial ischemia arise due to COVID?
See, in the most important cardiac complications are myocarditis, and mostly in these cases, an cardiac MR is used, in which we can classically see subepicardial myocardial edema and late gadolinium enhancement. In superimposed bacterial pneumonias, as I had seen, as I had shown a case of coexistent infection, CT can diagnose whether there is a coexistent infection with COVID-19, whether a tuberculosis or bacterial pneumonias, in which you can see classical tree-inverse centrilobular nodular opicities, cavities, or consolidations. So CT can help in diagnosis of other infections as well. Yeah.
Thank you, doctor. I hope this helps the participant who had this query. The second question is, what if the CT is positive and RT-PCR is negative for COVID-19?
See, this situation can arise because the sensitivity of RT-PCR is 70%. So we have seen a few cases in clinical practice when the CT was positive and RT-PCR was negative. In such cases, especially in CORADS 4 and 5, we usually quarantine the patient and then repeat an RT-PCR after 24 to 48 hours. However, in CORADS 3, the situation can get a bit tricky, and here the clinical and lab parameters should be taken into the consideration for final management of the patient. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Saurav. So the next question in queue is CT done for all cases of COVID pneumonia?
I can't say all cases, but it is done in most of the cases of COVID-19 pneumonia. In asymptomatic patients who have stable clinical and lab parameters, a CT is usually not done. They are just put on treatment. However, in symptomatic patients, CT is done according to the WHO guidelines, which I told you. In cases with mild COVID-19 pneumonia, CT is done to decide whether he should be home quarantined or he should be admitted. In patients with moderate to severe disease, CT is done to obviously look for the therapeutic management and look for the entire extent of involvement. Because RT-PCR can tell you whether the patient is positive or not, but CT gives us the exact amount of involvement, and thus it can predict the outcome and prognosticate the cases. Yeah.
Precisely, I think this should help in understanding the importance of CT more. The next question is, how is the progression of post-COVID fibrosis?
Okay, so we have seen post-COVID fibrosis in cases who had severe COVID-19 disease. So this is a very important problem which we are going to face in near future, because even when the pandemic settles down, we are going even 1 to 2 years down the line, we are going to have cases of COVID-related fibrosis, and we will have to develop a way to tackle it. Right now, as of now, we do not have a long-term follow-up of 3 to 4 months of how the disease progresses. And we do not have a single study right now, but we hope to have something, a fresh study in future, which will help us in the management. Yeah.
Perfect. Just a quick announcement to all the attendees. If there are any more questions aligned, please type it in our chat box. We would love to take it. Meanwhile, we have 2 more questions queued that we will take it up. And this question is really important, Dr. Saurav. What are the guidelines for the use of CT in pregnant patients with COVID pneumonia?
Oh, okay. This is a very important question which someone has come up with, and a very important scenario. We try to avoid CT in pregnant patients as much as possible. But CT is not contraindicated, especially in patients who are deteriorating. If the clinicians advise for a radiological study, we first take an informed consent, and then, especially in the first trimester, we go for a low-dose chest X-ray with abdominal shield. And if the chest X-ray is inconclusive, we go ahead with CT. However, dose CT with abdominal shield can be used in the second and third trimesters of pregnancy if the patient is presenting with worsening respiratory symptoms. But we generally try to avoid CT in the first case of pregnant patients.
Sure. Thank you, Doctor.
So I hope it answers the query. Yeah.
I hope so. Doctor, so the next question is CT indicated for follow-up of COVID positive hospitalized patients showing deterioration in symptoms, especially where no separate dedicated CT machine available for COVID patients? Can portable X-ray suffice in this case?
Yeah, especially in patients who are admitted in ICU and who are difficult to transport, routinely a chest radiograph is done in severe cases. Say chest radiograph is done every 2 to 3 days for their follow-up, but the sensitivity of chest X-ray is definitely less than CT. If CT is not available, a radiograph can be done every 2 to 3 days, which can show the progression, deterioration of complicated cases. But definitely, if a CT is available, the follow-up guidelines usually depend upon the clinical presentation and the requirement of the oxygen and all the clinical and lab parameters. So if the patient is deteriorating, a CT should be done. However, in cases where CT is not available, chest X-ray should suffice.
So this is basis most of the clinical impressions that we would have.
Yeah.
Sure. The next question is, can early ILD mimic COVID findings?
Especially if ILD, as I told you, can be tricky. In advanced ILD, which have honeycombing and tractional bronchiectasis, it is pretty easy. But de novo cases of ILD can be very difficult to differentiate from subpleural reticular opacities and GGOs of resolving viral pneumonitis. And in such cases, especially the clinical presentation is very important. And in the ongoing pandemic, the clinical suspicion should be heavily relied upon. And if the patient presents with the appropriate findings, then RT-PCR should be done to differentiate between an early ILD and COVID-19 pneumonia.
The next question is, how to grade COVID infection?
We have seen the grading. We have graded it. We can either use the CORADS system or we can use the RSNA consensus statement. And I have already discussed it. Like we have 6 grades of CORADS classification and 4 grades of classification according to RSNA consensus statement. And we generally use a CORADS classification to grade it from CORADS 1 to 6, depending upon the suspicion of COVID-19 on CT. So we can use either of the 2 grading systems.
Sure. So in continuation with the same, the other question is, what if no pneumonia on CR and PCR is positive? Which CORADS to give?
This can occur in early cases. As I told you, in the first 3 to 4 days of infection, a CT can be completely normal. So these cases are, they can have RT-PCR positive status, but on CT you can give that right now there are no ground glass opacities or ILD, but CORADS classification we give a CORADS 6. But the findings will tell to the clinician that right now the CT findings are completely normal and there is no CT, not a severe COVID pneumonia on CT. So basically, I will continue with the question. The ideal time to get a CT done is not in the first 3 to 4 days, because in these days you can get a normal CT. The ideal time is, as I told you, between the 5th to 10th day, in which you can see the maximum amount of involvement of the lung by COVID-19 pneumonia. So we do not do a CT in the first 3 to 4 days, and we do a CT between 5 to 10 days. Yeah.
Sure. So I think this question which has come up would be covered in most of what you have spoken, but still the question is, what CORADS to assign in a CT showing both active GGOs and COVID fibriosis?
Okay, so you can get see the state. You can get a case when you can have GGOs with fibrosis also. So the CORADs will usually depend upon the extent of the imaging findings. If you have the classical GGOs and it is there are associated vascular thickening, you give a CORADs 5. However, the stage will vary upon the findings. If there are more of fibrosis, you can give that the COVID pneumonia is right now in the resolving stage, and if there is more of GGOs and consolidation, you can give that the stage of pneumonia is right now in the progressive or the peak stage. So the stage will vary, but I don't think the CORADs will vary as such. The CORADs will usually be 5 in a case with typical findings.
Thanks, doctor. So the next question comes as how to differentiate hypersensitivity pneumonitis from COVID pneumonia?
Hypersensitivity pneumonitis has three stages, the early, subacute, and the late stage. I think the person must be asking how to differentiate an acute case, because even in acute case of hypersensitive pneumonitis, you can get GGOs and consolidation. The subacute and late stages are easier, as you can get nodular opacities and fibrosis later in the stage. So early stage of hypersensitive pneumonitis, as I told you, it's just equivalent to an interstitial lung disease. And in such cases, the clinical suspicion will be heavily relied upon. Also in COVID-19, the distribution is very classical. And as I told you, the associated findings such as vascular thickening and linear opacities, these are all not seen in hypersensitive pneumonitis. So even in early case, I don't think it will be very difficult to differentiate from hypersensitive pneumonitis from COVID-19 pneumonia if you take the whole picture into consideration.
Thank you, doctor. So we have too many questions coming up. The other question is, is it safe to do ultrasound guided pleural effusion tapping in present pandemic scenario?
Obviously, like it is risky, but I don't think there is a need to do ultrasound guided pleural effusion tapping in COVID-19 disease. If you have pleural effusion is a rare finding, and it is seen in like 5 to 10% of the patients. And generally it is mild, so I don't think there is a need to do tapping. You can you can directly do a throat swab and a CT. So COVID-19 pneumonia, I don't think there is a real need of tapping, and diagnostic as well as therapeutic tapping. I haven't seen anyone do that.
Okay, so there's a case from one of our attendees. 2 well-defined ground glass nodules seen separately, each in right and left lower lobe. Which CORAD score?
If there are like 2 ground glass nodular opacities in the same lung, on the same side, then usually we'll give a CORADs 4. So I guess these findings will be very highly suspicious of CORADs pneumonia, COVID pneumonia, especially in the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Lately, I had seen a patient only with a small patch, a single dot of pneumonia, and he turned out to be an RT-PCR positive case. So if you see such tiny nodular ground glass opacities, you should label it as CORADs 5 and advise an RT-PCR. You should give it as highly suspicious for COVID-19. If there is a single tiny patch like somewhere, then you can label it as CORADs 3. Yeah.
Attendees, last 2 questions from our end. First one is how to treat post-COVID patient with low oxygen saturation.
See, this is, I think, more of a clinical question, and my chest physician friends will be more willing and happy to answer this. Right now, we'll try to restrict our discussion to the radiological aspect of COVID-19, and maybe we can take it later. Yeah.
Definitely. So the next question is more of a scope question. And the question comes from, I guess, some of our resident friend. Scope of research for a radiology resident with respect to CT imaging of COVID.
right now there is a lot of scope for research. As I told you, post-COVID lung fibrosis is a major topic for research right now. And if anyone is just looking up for topics, they can surely take up this topic, because right now we do not have a single study. Also, I was going up through the net to look for association of COVID with tuberculosis, and I did not find a single Indian study in it. Especially in India, there is so much prevalence of tuberculosis. I thought there would be a study. So these are certain topics which definitely radiology residents can take up, because right now we are still into the pandemic, and still even after 3 to 4 months, we have a lot of unanswered questions. So radiology residents, especially joining right now, can take up a lot of findings of a lot of research topics related to COVID-19.
Thank you, doctor. So that's more of from the question. We have one last question from our attendee.
Okay.
In a patient of rheumatoid arthritis, on methotrexate, presently with gradually progressive dyspnea, can we differentiate between drug-induced changes versus COVID-19 pneumonia?
I think I have answered it all the earlier questions related to ILDs. So the answer for it is also same. As I had already answered in ILDs, differentiating acute exacerbations of ILDs from COVID-19 can be very difficult. And in such cases, the clinical suspicion should be heavily relied upon.
Sure, thank you. So we will close the Q&A chat box, friends. This was the last question we take for the day. Dr. Saurav, some really fantastic and relevant cases that you took us through today, with different severity.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
With different severity, lots of insights that you brought in from these cases for those who have attended our session, and I'm sure it is going to help them all. Big thanks to you and all our attendees for participating.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Very good interaction.
Yeah, thank you for the
great
participants.
questions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we close the session then. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah.